using a throwaway account because I don't want anyone I know to see that I'm posting about the situation. So, a little insight before I get into what happened. I am a 23-year-old female, and I have been with my 25-year-old husband since ninth grade. My husband is transgender, female to male. His family has never been supportive, and he didn't come out to them until he was 18. He moved in with me immediately after turning 18. His whole family is unsupportive and blames me for my husband's transition, even though he has known about it since before we met. Nonetheless, my husband doesn't want to lose the relationship he does have with his family, so we still visit them from time to time. His sister, who we will call Taylor, is a narcissistic train wreck. She thinks everything is always going to go her way, which it usually does. My husband's parents still treat her like a little girl and always take her side in everything. She has never had a job and expects everything to be handed to her. Now, on to the actual story. 3 weeks ago, my husband and I went to his parents' house to get some of our belongings that we had left there while we were moving. We had just moved, and they allowed us to keep some stuff there temporarily. When we got back to our house, we noticed that about half of our stuff was missing. Mostly my clothes, jewelry, some shoes, and some of my husband's personal belongings. We thought that maybe we just missed a few boxes and went back to look, but there was nothing. My husband asked his mom if she had moved any boxes, but she said no and left it at that. We suspected what had happened, but we didn't want to accuse anyone without evidence. Then, I was scrolling through Facebook and saw Taylor wearing my deceased grandmother's necklace. His sister has my husband blocked on everything because she has actually stolen from him before. It was never anything major, but the fact that she could have just asked him instead of breaking into his car and stealing from him is what bothers us. He told his mom about it, and about a week later, she told us that Taylor is going to bring everything she took from us back to their house and asked us to go get it. So we went, and during this exchange, Taylor started throwing insane insults at my husband. He asked her what he ever did to her for her to steal from him and us. To add some context, I have never had a genuine conversation with her. She has always avoided me and talked badly about me to everyone. She even called me an intimacy worker to my husband because he wouldn't give her a free ride 3 hours away since we were saving money for IVF treatments. Throughout the whole ordeal, I kept my mouth shut and didn't say much. At the end of the day, they are my husband's family, and it is his choice whether to cut them off or not. But when my husband asked Taylor what he had ever done to her for her to do this, she replied, "Because you turned into a freak, I don't know you anymore. You're a horrible little sister." That's where I drew the line. I honestly don't even remember what came over me in that moment, but I know I will not sit back and watch someone disrespect my husband like that, whether they are family or not. Of course, his whole family took Taylor's side. My husband doesn't think what I did was the best option, but he is not mad at me. They have now banned me from family events and want my husband to choose between us. He didn't go to his Christmas because I was strictly forbidden. I know that my husband will choose me, but I don't think he should have to. I do regret causing this situation, but I don't regret standing up for my husband. They constantly walk all over him and disrespect him to his face every time we visit them. I wish we had cut off contact with them a long time ago, but not under these circumstances. Edit. Okay, I didn't expect this post to get so much attention, but to address some comments, I am telling my side of the story, not doing a creative writing exercise. Also, I genuinely blacked out after I hit Taylor once, so I don't remember the actual fight itself. But I will say that I did enough to the point where I'm lucky she's not pressing charges on me for attack. I am not pressing charges on her for theft either. For those asking what I did, I have never done anything wrong to Taylor or my husband's family, except be supportive of my husband. I have corrected them on his names and pronouns countless times over the years, but that's it. As for the comments asking why we kept our stuff at his parents' house, it was because we are trying to have a child, and that is very expensive, especially in this economy. So if we could save money by doing what we did, that's what we were going to do. We didn't think Taylor would show up and take our belongings. Yes, we did get our belongings back. Okay, so I'm going to address a few more things. For one, I'm not sure why it's so hard to believe that Taylor and I have never genuinely exchanged many words. If you were around someone who you knew didn't like you from the start, would you try to make conversation with them? Taylor isn't the one my husband is trying to keep a relationship with, and I should have mentioned that at the beginning. He wants to keep his relationship with his parents mostly. Taylor has made it clear that she didn't like me from the beginning and has blamed me for my husband being transgender. I'm sorry, but I've never done anything to her. That's not a my side, her side thing. It's literally just the fact that she thinks it's my fault, as if that's something so awful. To address the therapy comments, for one, I'll address the ones recommending therapy with his family. When he first moved out, they recommended family therapy. He agreed and went. The therapist essentially told them they needed to accept him and stop allowing Taylor to walk all over them. They didn't like that, so they stopped going because they didn't agree with the therapist. Both myself and my husband are in therapy. I know the decision I made was not rational, and I do think I am a little bit of a jerk, but not for the same reason some of you think. I think I am a jerk because I put my husband in a position where his family wants him to choose between us, when I could have controlled myself. To those calling my husband spineless or a coward, I want to emphasize that being brought up in a family of bigots and experiencing constant verbal abuse makes you feel like it is your fault. All he wants is for his parents to accept him for who he is, even though he knows it's very unlikely to happen. To him, they are still his family, and he loves them despite the disrespect he receives. Some people can cut off their family for not being supportive, myself included, but it's not that easy for everyone. For those calling me a psycho or a liar for not including details about the fight, I was asking if I was wrong, not asking if I'm a good fighter. To those asking about IVF and how we would even have a child, please use a search engine to look up the costs of IVF and how it works. Yes, if IVF doesn't work, we will consider adoption. And even if IVF does work, we still plan on adopting one day. Just because we were trying to save money doesn't mean we can't afford a child. Lastly, I am not looking for people to tell me I am some kind of savior. I simply wanted people's opinions. If you think otherwise, that is your right. But no, I agree with a lot of the comments telling me I was wrong, and I agree with a lot of the comments telling me they'd do the same thing. If you are replying to every single comment on the threads, maybe read some of my comments as well. From now on, I will not be replying to comments. I will only update if there is something that needs addressing. So if you have a question that hasn't yet been answered, or if you just want to stay updated, check my comments or come back here. To those asking for an update, I'm not sure what kind of update I can give you. No charges are being pressed. My husband has not yet decided if he is going to sever ties with his family, and I am staying out of it and supporting whatever decision my husband makes. Personally, I won't be in contact with them, and they won't have any contact with our future children. Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. Not only did she have it coming, but I would have had her charged with breaking and entering and petty theft. I don't even interact with the police like that, but she stole Grandma's necklace. Comment 2. My only question is, did you get the necklace back? If she refused to give it back, take her to small claims court and ensure you have proof, like pictures, that the necklace belongs to you. Now, for the update. Hey everyone, it's been a while since my last post, and wow, a lot has happened. I'm still using a throwaway because the drama just keeps unfolding and I don't want this tied to my main account. Let's start with the aftermath of the whole Taylor situation. After the incident, my husband and I had a long talk about boundaries and how we wanted to handle his family moving forward. We agreed that we needed to protect our peace, especially with our plans to start a family. We decided to take a break from his family, which meant no calls, no visits, nothing. It was tough for my husband, but he knew it was for the best. During this time, we focused on our IVF journey. We were saving every penny, cutting back on non-essentials, and it was starting to pay off. We were getting closer to our goal, and the excitement was building. But, as life would have it, just when things were looking up, we got hit with another curveball. Out of the blue, my husband's mom reached out to him. She said she missed him and wanted to talk. My husband, being the kind-hearted person he is, agreed to meet her for coffee without me to keep things simple. They had a long conversation, and she apologized for everything, especially for not standing up to Taylor. She even offered to help us with the IVF costs, which was a shocker. My husband was moved by the gesture but declined, saying we wanted to do this on our own. Now here's where things get really crazy. A few weeks after their meeting, my husband's mom called again, this time in tears. She confessed that Taylor had been stealing from them too. Jewelry, money, you name it. She was at her wit's end and didn't know what to do. My husband was floored. It was like a light bulb went off, and suddenly all of Taylor's past behaviors made sense. She wasn't just a spoiled brat. She had a serious problem. My husband, being the bigger person, suggested they get Taylor help instead of punishing her. His parents agreed, and Taylor was enrolled in a program for people with kleptomania. It was a step in the right direction, but we kept our distance, still wary of getting too involved. Meanwhile, our IVF treatments were underway. It was a whirlwind of emotions, but we were hopeful. Then, just last week, we got the news we'd been waiting for. We were pregnant. We were over the moon, and it felt like all our struggles were finally worth it. But as we were celebrating our little miracle, another shocker dropped. Taylor, who had been doing well in her program, reached out to us. She wanted to apologize in person. We were hesitant, but we agreed to meet her at a public place, just to be safe. The meeting was tense at first, but Taylor seemed genuinely remorseful. She apologized for everything, especially for the hurtful things she said to my husband. She explained that she felt lost and out of control, and that stealing was her way of coping with her own issues. She even returned a few items we didn't realize were missing. Just as we were starting to believe that Taylor might have changed, she dropped a revelation that left us speechless. She confessed that the reason she had been so angry and resentful towards my husband wasn't just because of his transition. It was because she had always felt overshadowed by him, even before he transitioned. She felt like he was the favorite child, and her acting out was a way to get attention. We were stunned. It was a lot to process, and it made us see Taylor in a new light. We didn't fully forgive her, but we understood her a bit better. As we were about to leave, Taylor said she had one more thing to tell us. She hesitated, then revealed that she was pregnant too. And the father? None other than her therapist from the kleptomania program. She met him during her treatment, and things had escalated quickly. We were shocked. It was a lot to take in, and we didn't know how to react. My husband and I left the meeting with mixed feelings. We were happy about our own pregnancy, but worried about what Taylor's news meant for the family dynamic. My husband and I tried to save on our wedding by keeping it a secret, but when the resort found out, we're now paying more than expected and our house fund is gone. My husband Victor and I recently got married. We started planning a traditional wedding, but we weren't looking forward to it, so we scrapped those plans and chose to do something a little different instead. We found a small, rustic type of resort, almost like an adult sleepaway camp in the mountains. It seemed to be run just by one older couple and their son. They had a lodge where you could rent suites, or you could rent a cluster of 3 to 6 cabins that were semi-private. Other guests on the property, but the little neighborhoods are well spaced apart. You bring your own food and drinks. There's a couple snack bars on premise, but no real meals. We talked with our immediate families and closest friends, and we booked 6 cabins for 18 people. We booked it as a family retreat. I did see the part on the website that said contact us about wedding rates and packages, with a link to their partner vendors for catering and stuff. But we didn't need any kind of wedding package for what we wanted. I wore a simple but pretty dress, and my sisters did hair and makeup for me and anyone who wanted it. Our dads went into town and got takeout from 3 different places: champagne, a bunch of grocery store flowers, and 5 pies. My brother married us in the little clearing by the cabins, and then we spent the rest of the afternoon and evening eating, drinking, talking, and playing games before everyone dispersed for the night to their own cabins. It might have been a wedding because we came out of it married, sure, but I don't think we did or needed anything that merits the exorbitant wedding tax that gets slapped onto everything the moment you whisper, engaged. We didn't bring any outside guests or vendors or do anything that required extra cleanup, so what exactly would I be paying for? So we just didn't tell them. We all stayed for 5 days, and otherwise the trip was very much like a family retreat, so I didn't feel that bad about not being fully transparent. I was really happy with our trip. So a couple of weeks after, I left a review on Google. I slipped up and mentioned an amazing start to our marriage and got a snarky email a few days later that unapproved events on the property were a violation of their policies. I replied that I meant it was a family trip intended to celebrate our engagement, and they replied back with an apology and congratulations. This makes 2 times that I have lied to these people, and I don't know if I should feel bad or not. Is my wedding looking so much like a family trip to celebrate an engagement that they didn't even question it? Not proof enough that we didn't need the wedding bells and whistles? I just feel morally torn because I don't like lying, especially to individuals just trying to make a living. But I don't feel like I should be obligated to let myself get hosed either. So I'm just really unsure of how I feel about my choices here and would like some objective perspectives. Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1, not the jerk. This was not a reception. It was a quiet gathering of friends and family, all of whom were staying there to celebrate your nuptials. It was not a wedding. You didn't need catering or any of the stuff that would be required for a reception. Don't feel bad. My partner and I are getting married soon, and we are just hosting a small thing, but the venue is aware, and thankfully it is not considered a wedding, but more a gathering. It boggles the mind that vendors charge so much just because there is the word wedding. I understand makeup artists and photographers because there are additional things required for such events, but anything else is just a ripoff. Comment 2, not the jerk. You all camped and vacationed there. Very low-key, casual arrangements. You bought takeout for your meal and cleaned up after yourselves. No need for caterer. You didn't have a white dress with a 10-foot train. No need for florist, $1,000 tiered cake, etc. A nice, non-traditional, we're not bothering you and we're minding our own business type of thing. It must have been lovely, and congratulations. For all they know, it could have been a cosplay event. If they had charged wedding prices, they probably would have lost business, since if it was too expensive, you would have gone somewhere else. Now for the update. Hey Reddit, it's me again with an update on the whole did we or didn't we have a wedding situation at the mountain resort. Buckle up, because the past 3 days have been a roller coaster. So, after my last post, I thought the whole thing was settled. We had our non-wedding wedding, I accidentally let it slip in a review, and then smoothed things over with the resort owners. But boy was I wrong. 2 days ago, I got another email from the resort, but this time it was from their son, who I guess helps run the place. He said he saw the pictures we posted on social media, and it was pretty clear we had a wedding. I felt my stomach drop. I had totally forgotten about the photos my sister-in-law posted with the hashtag #BestWeddingEver. In the background, you could see the little clearing all set up, which looked suspiciously like a ceremony spot. The son was polite but firm. He said they needed to charge us the wedding rate because we used their property for a wedding, even if we didn't think it was a real wedding. He mentioned that they had turned down a big wedding booking for that weekend because our family retreat had already reserved the cabins. I was freaking out. Victor and I had saved money by not having a traditional wedding, and now it looked like we might have to pay up anyway. I called Victor at work, and he was just as shocked as I was. We decided to meet up with his parents that evening to talk it over, since they had been a big part of the planning. At dinner, Victor's mom, who's always been the level-headed one, suggested we just come clean and apologize. Maybe they'd be lenient. But Victor's dad, who's a bit of a hothead, was all riled up. He said we shouldn't pay a dime more because we didn't agree to any wedding package. The argument got heated, and I could see the stress was getting to Victor. He's always been the peacemaker in his family, and now he was caught between his parents and trying to do right by the resort owners. The next day, I called the resort to try and explain. I spoke to the wife of the couple who owns the place, and she was much kinder than I expected. She said she understood our point of view, but that they had policies for a reason. She also mentioned that they had to do extra cleanup after our family retreat because of all the flowers and food leftovers, which was more work than usual. I felt terrible. We had tried to keep everything low-key, but I guess we hadn't considered the extra work we might have caused. I offered to pay for the cleanup, hoping that would be enough, but she said she'd have to discuss it with her husband and son. That night, Victor and I lay in bed, going over everything. He admitted that he felt guilty about the whole situation. He's always been the type to follow rules, and this was eating him up inside. I felt guilty too, but I was also worried about the money. We had just started our lives together, and this was not the financial surprise we needed. This morning, things took another turn. Victor's brother, who's always been the busy card of the family, called us up. He said he had a plan to get us out of this mess. He wanted to go to the resort and talk to the owners in person, maybe even offer to do some work around the place to make up for the extra cleanup. I was hesitant because his plans usually lead to more trouble, but Victor thought it was worth a shot. So, Victor's brother went up to the resort today. He's a charming guy, and he can be very persuasive when he wants to be. But when he got there, he found out that the owners had already made a decision. They were willing to waive the wedding fee, but they wanted us to pay for the cleanup and for the lost revenue from the big wedding. They turned down. Victor's brother called us, and I could tell he was trying to sound positive, but the amount they were asking for was still pretty steep. We're going to have to dip into our savings, which we had earmarked for a down payment on a house. My face swelled up from a treatment, and a coworker made fun of me, so I joked it's contagious. He tattled to HR, but karma hit him hard. I, 30-year-old female, had problems with severe acne ever since my mid-teens. Finally, a couple of years ago, with lots of medication, skincare, and persistence, my skin cleared up completely. However, I was left with quite a bit of scarring on my face. I decided I want to tackle that and get microneedling done. For those who don't know what that is, it's basically a procedure where you get your skin punctured with lots of tiny needles, and that can help to reduce the scars. So during the procedure, you bleed a bit, and my esthetician told me my skin will be red, sensitive, possibly swollen for a few days after. So I decided to work from home for the next few days. The next day after the procedure, I woke up indeed slightly swollen, and areas on my face where I have deep scars were still pretty red. Anyway, my boss, 50-something-year-old male, called me and asked if I can come to the office as there was an emergency. I work as a test automation engineer at a big corporation. My boss sounded pretty desperate, so I told him I'll be there. And just a side note here, after microneedling, you are not allowed to put on any makeup. So I had to come in looking not great. When I came in, my boss saw me and asked me if I am okay. I explained to him that I had a cosmetic procedure done to make my skin look better in the long run. His response was basically like, "Oh, okay, good for you." Later that day, a coworker, 40-something-year-old male, saw me and asked in a pretty nasty way, "Hey, what's wrong with your face?" I was already bothered by how he asked this. I don't really know him. He's from another team, and I don't think we've ever really spoken before, other than hello. I told him I had a cosmetic procedure done, to which he said, "This doesn't look like it was a cosmetic procedure. This looks like a really bad rash." I just rolled my eyes at him and left. Lo and behold, a few hours later, he's back at my office door, asking me if I should even be at the office, and if I had seen a doctor for this. At that point, I am extremely annoyed by how this man is acting. And since I have actually told him before what it is, this time I decided to say, well, the doctor still doesn't know what it is, but it might be highly contagious. We really can't know. After that interaction, he just left. And for the next few days, I worked from home as planned. Anyway, when I came back, I was called into the HR. Apparently, that guy had reported me, saying I am coming to the office with a contagious rash, putting others in danger. I was shocked and tried explaining to the HR lady what really happened, that he didn't believe the truth once I told him. And since he had no business asking me about my condition, I demanded my boss be called in. My boss confirmed my story, and I showed a receipt of paying for a microneedling session a day before that happened. The HR lady then obviously believed I didn't come in with a contagious rash, but insisted it was highly unprofessional and I was causing panic, which even my boss laughed at. Anyway, I was given a verbal warning. I will admit that in hindsight, saying the doctor doesn't know, but it might be contagious was childish. However, the guy didn't believe me the first time when I told him what it really is. So, am I the idiot for telling my coworker the rashes might be contagious? Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1, you were given a verbal warning for being highly unprofessional and causing panic when you were only at work because your boss called to desperately ask you to come in for an emergency? Was the warning for your having been in the office in the first place? Or for your comment in response to your coworker who wouldn't leave you alone or believe anything you said before that? I'd contest the verbal warning, frankly, in addition to doing pretty much exactly what user Beck210 suggested. Not the idiot. Comment 2, not the idiot. And the dumbest freaking people on planet Earth end up in HR. BW, let your boss know that next time there's an emergency and you're out, you're out. Can't be helping him out and risk another warning from HR. Maybe that'll scare him into going to upper management to complain about HR's handling of it. Now for the update. Hey everyone. A lot has happened since my last post about the microneedling incident at work. Buckle up, because this update is a busy ride. After the whole HR debacle, things seemed to calm down. I was back at work, my face was healing nicely, and I thought the drama was behind me. But boy, was I wrong. Remember the coworker who reported me? Let's call him Mark. Well, Mark and I had never really interacted much before the contagious rash incident, but it turns out he's been harboring some serious resentment towards me for a while now. You see, a few years back, before my skin cleared up, I had applied for a promotion. It was a position Mark wanted too, but I got it because of my qualifications and hard work. I never knew he was bitter about it until now. Apparently, he's been waiting for an opportunity to get back at me, and my vulnerable state post-microneedling was the perfect chance. The plot thickened when I found out that Mark had been spreading rumors about me. He told people that I was faking my skin condition to get sympathy and special treatment from our boss. I couldn't believe it. I've always been professional and tried to keep my personal struggles out of the workplace. But here's where things get really juicy. My boss, who had been supportive during the HR meeting, started acting strange. He was avoiding me, not making eye contact, and seemed really tense whenever I was around. I couldn't figure out why until I overheard a conversation between him and Mark. Turns out, my boss and Mark had been friends for years. They went to college together, and their families were close. My boss had been the one to get Mark the job at our company in the first place. And now Mark had convinced my boss that I was a liability to the team because of my health issues. I was floored. My boss, who I respected and trusted, had betrayed me. He was supposed to be on my side, but instead, he was letting his personal relationship with Mark cloud his judgment. The confrontation was inevitable. I walked straight into my boss's office and asked him point blank if he thought I was a liability. He stumbled over his words, trying to backtrack, but the damage was done. I knew where I stood. Feeling betrayed and alone, I decided to focus on my work and let my results speak for themselves. I put in extra hours, double-checked my automation scripts, and made sure everything was running smoothly. I wasn't going to let Mark's pettiness or my boss's betrayal derail my career. But then, another news dropped. I discovered that Mark had been tampering with my work. He'd been subtly introducing bugs into the code I was responsible for, making it look like I was slipping up. It was a sophisticated form of sabotage, and he almost got away with it. I caught the discrepancies during a routine check and immediately brought it to the attention of our department head, who was above my boss. I presented my evidence, and an investigation was launched. It didn't take long for the truth to come out. Mark was caught red-handed, and the extent of his manipulation was revealed. The fallout was intense. Mark was fired on the spot, and my boss was reprimanded for his lack of oversight and personal bias. It was a bittersweet victory. I had cleared my name, but the trust I had in my boss was shattered. If you liked this video, you'll probably like these too. Also, while you're here, please consider subscribing. It's your support that keeps this channel alive and allows me to make better and longer videos. Have a great day.